May webinar. Really happy to bring folks together. Really excited about our guest speakers today. Web Strategies Inc., fairly new associate member of the association, has already been a great partner working with some of our members and then actually working with our team internally as we try to navigate this new normal. And Web Strategies, just a little backstory on the company. They'll obviously give you some little additional insight into this, but Web Strategies was founded in 2004 to help businesses improve their sales and online marketing. In that short amount of time, Web Strategies, in that 16-year window, has grown into one of the premier inbound marketing agencies in Virginia, with a high level of expertise in digital marketing. So today we're going to have Chris Leone, who's president and CEO of the company, Howard Deskin, who's the director of strategic accounts, and Preston Kindig, who's the manager of digital marketing. And they're going to talk to us about how, as manufacturing companies, how we develop that digital playbook. And this is obviously, a very salient topic today, given the current time. How do we how do we take advantage of the digital era? How do we, in lieu of the trade shows, the trade missions that we're used to going on, how do we take advantage of digital resources to increase sales? So, gentlemen, we are ready to start whenever you are. Everybody should be muted. Please mute your mic if you're not talking, if you're not already muted. We will unmute folks later in the conversation. We'll hold off for questions until the end. We'll have about 5 or 10 minutes for questions. But Chris, if you want to kick us off, we are good to go.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Ian, for the introduction. Can you hear and see me okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, wonderful. Well, thanks everybody for hopping on the webinar today or watching the recording after the fact. First of all, I hope you and your families and your colleagues are all safe and healthy right now. As Ian said, Web Strategies is a digital marketing agency, and we are based in Richmond, Virginia, and we specialize in serving manufacturing companies all across the U.S. Marketing teams and sales teams and C-suites typically come to us when they want a manufacturing partner who deeply understands what it takes for manufacturers to be successful online. They want to become more aggressive in generating leads or sales, or they want to become less dependent on trade shows and think digital is a way to do it. So that's just real quick, a little bit about us. But you alluded to this, Ian, that a lot of manufacturers are thinking about how to become less dependent on trade shows, and that's what really sparked today's topic. Today, we want to talk about that transition to a more digitally and virtual-minded approach to sales and marketing. So for manufacturers who've been very reliant on trade shows or have just been slow to adapt or make that leap to a full-fledged digital approach, today's webinar and its content is really made just for you. Now, Howard and Preston, myself, may recommend or discuss certain resources as it relates to manufacturers, calculators, surveys that we've done, pieces of content that we've developed before. If you're interested in finding any of that, you can go to our website, webstrategiesinc.com, webstrategiesinc.com, and you can find all that great information there. We pump out a ton of resources for people in the manufacturing space. So there's a lot of goodies in there for you. So let me introduce a couple team members that are going to be joining us today. First, Howard Deskin, Director of Strategic Accounts, and Preston Kindig, one of our lead digital marketing consultants for manufacturers. And Ian, as you said, I am CEO of Web Strategies and also a digital practitioner. And I've been doing this for about 13 years now, just before I came on with Web Strategies 12 years ago. As I said, I brought on a couple of my team members because in times like this, I think it's important to try and pull on different areas of expertise, and we've found, as we've done many of these webinars for manufacturers, that this format of having multiple team members on is really beneficial to the audience. So, Howard really brings a lot of skills and expertise on the selling side, and then on the practitioner side, Preston works with many manufacturers of all shapes and sizes across the country, and he's talking to them on a daily basis. So there's a lot that he can bring to this conversation as well. Now, we're going to talk about, as we talk about digital transformation, we're going to put it in the context of what I call the 3 pillars. Okay, we're going to talk about digital strategy, digital marketing strategy, but then we're also going to talk virtual selling, and then we're also going to talk about technology. We consider these to be the 3 pillars because you can't just have good digital strategy, you can't just have good virtual selling, you can't just have good technology. You got to have all 3 of these things kind of working together in tandem with each other. And when you do, you get this 1 + 1 = 3 effect, or in this case, 1 + 1 + 1 = 5 effect. Okay, so we're going to break all those down. But before we get into it, I want to do what we've done in every one of these webinars that we've had for manufacturers over the last couple months, and just have Howard and maybe even Preston talk for a minute, since they talk to manufacturers on a daily basis all across the country. What is the general sentiment that you've been hearing in the last week from manufacturers, and how does that compare to what maybe you were hearing in a month ago or even 2 months ago? So Howard, I want to kick off by sending that question over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Hello, everybody. Glad to be here today. Yeah, as Chris mentioned, we talk to manufacturers every day of the week. We obviously work with a lot of them, and we've kind of gotten a sense on what's happening out there. And back a month ago, 6 weeks ago, it was, well, we're deemed essential, or we deemed ourselves essential. We're up and running. The office staff's working from home, or they're coming in the office part-time, kind of split shift. But there wasn't any of the, hey, we're trying to operate 6 feet apart in the factories or anything like that. And now it's, we're up and running. We're figuring things out. We've got things figured out. We've done some special, setups on the factory floor to help folks, do social distance best they can. Some of them are obviously, got masks and so forth. And for the most part, while there's been some drop in volume, order volume, they're holding their own. They're hanging in there. They've been able to fulfill orders where there was enough inventory. That was a good thing. They were able to use that inventory to fulfill orders. Some of the folks we talked to and we work with had some supplier issues, especially getting materials from India. India's been the latest one. China was first, but China's now come back. Then India went offline a bit, but they're starting to come back. So it's this kind of a whack-a-mole. Which one is available to ship and which one isn't? But it looks like things are certainly moving in the right direction. Many of them, either they applied for the loan money from the government and got it. So I heard of a few that had to lay some people off, but they think, it's a temporary furlough situation. So that's what we're hearing. There have been some industries, anybody working in the food space, like that supplies the food processing plants and all that, they were doing really well because that food is essential, people buying food. More recent, with the recent news that some of the plants had shut down, I haven't personally heard of any effects to the people we talk with yet. But these plants, they shut down for a few days and they open back up. So it's not like it's months at a time. So that's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
So what about the initial reaction, or maybe the reaction we've seen over the last 2 months in regards to how they're treating their marketing and sales? Maybe approach that a lot of businesses would take in recession times prior to more recent times was, well, marketing's got to go first. So we'll cut that. And I know certainly we've seen that from some, but not a whole lot. But the more, it seems like a lot of the wisdom that's come out of the Great Recession has been, this is the time, first of all, not just to cut marketing, but to try and, cut non-essential stuff. But this is the time to build brand. This is the time to start ramping up, because eventually we'll come out of it and you still want your brand to be visible. That seems to be the more conventional wisdom around what to do in a time like this. but it's not necessarily what we're seeing. Howard, Preston, what did you see transpire in the last 2 months in regards to how manufacturers were thinking about sales and marketing?
Yeah, I can go first. So being on the front line and actually speaking to them, trying to reach out and connect, there has definitely been more interest in the last 2 months in learning about different approaches to lead generation, specifically digital, because the trade shows are shut down. And they up until very recently, they weren't rescheduled. But now you're seeing some of them get rescheduled out into 2021. There's others that are trying to go virtual, do the trade show virtually. So we're seeing more of that. But definitely more interest. We can gauge that because we have more people coming to our webinars. Some double, triple, quadruple the amount of people that we used to have at our monthly webinars. We're now doing more webinars and we're having more people attend. So there's more interest there. More people who want to talk about their situation as well, interested in ideas. Now, there's been some outliers. Not to say we've got some naysayers who go, oh, trade shows are never going to go away, and it's the only way to sell. All right. I think that's the exception to the rule there. But that's the type of thing, we're seeing. And we talk to folks in all types of manufacturing, food and beverage equipment, pharma, mining, for example, heavy construction equipment, and so forth.
Preston, what have you seen from some of your clients in the last couple months in terms of how they're thinking about and approaching their marketing and selling strategies right now?
Yeah, I have a few clients quite a few manufacturers who have started to really focus on video and talk about video of like, hey, we need to get people in here to shoot video, because in the old days, the trade shows was how we got our products in front of people. And we're just looking for other ways to kind of get our products out there in front of the people who need them. Another area is, a few of my clients have said, hey, when we come out of this, I want to be positioned stronger than my competitors. And a few of my folks have been, hey, let's really focus heavily on content right now, because I know that's going to have a lasting impact. And so that's kind of two areas that a few of my clients have been focusing energy.
And Chris,
yeah. Go ahead, Howard.
I was going to say, we have some slides. We did a survey very recently of manufacturers on the impact on their marketing and sales efforts, and what were they going to do about it. Slides 9, starting on slide 9.
Yeah, let me pull this up. And this is, we'll preface this by saying this is, not a large sample size at all. This was kind of a flash survey that we did on a webinar just to see what, hold on, let me see if I can pull up the slide. Can you see it okay?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so this was maybe from a month ago. I think, like I said, this was kind of a in the moment survey of just the people who responded at the time, what they were doing. And so walk us through what we're seeing here, Howard, and then we had a couple other questions that went along with it.
Right. So we asked 4 questions. What's the likelihood you're going to invest in new digital technologies? And we'll talk about some of those in a moment. And the trend was to increase, that they were interested in going to increase their spend in those areas. The next one was, we asked about marketing staff, and that was relatively, they were going to stay the same. They weren't going to hire more people or let people go, that's a positive sign as well, because as Chris mentioned, a lot of times marketing is the first thing to go in a recession. So that's positive. Next one was about your plans to invest in offline marketing. So trade shows would be in here, print materials. And the trend there was to decrease or stay the same. And that's generally a trend we see across all industries anyway. And then the last piece was the invest in digital advertising. So running advertising on like Google or LinkedIn. And that was, the trend was to increase or stay the same as well. So you kind of see the shift here.
Yeah, and there's something, I think something we all have to acknowledge, as we look at data like this and we talk about the response that we're seeing and the reactions that we're having in talking to clients and prospects and the like, is that this is such a kind of a unique window of time that we're in right now. We're not in the midst of a recession that we kind of like fell into slowly and we're kind of working our way out of. We're in this kind of odd period of time where things just stopped cold turkey. And so I think a lot of the manufacturers that we're talking to have not yet felt the true pain of this. That's going to come in the next 12 to 24 months potentially. They still have the budgets. They were planning on doing things. Now all of a sudden they physically cannot go to these trade shows and they're looking for alternatives while they still have the means and the budgets to do that. But nevertheless, what's different, what we're hearing that's different now than what we heard back in 08, 09 and in 10 in the recession was we realized that, I mean, look, there were so many success stories that came out of the last recession in terms of digital marketing. There are people whose business dried up immediately, and with all the resources that they had at their disposal and just the extra time they had because they weren't doing anything else, they decided, I'm just going to create content, I'm going to invest in digital. And then they came out 2-3x ahead of where they were going into it. There's just so many of those stories out there that I think people realize that now, if you back off, then you're missing a big opportunity. This is a time where you can start. Again, you got to do it wisely. We're not saying that we realize that there are financial constraints and other constraints to think about, but this is a time to really build brand. It's not necessarily time to generate leads, right? And maybe we're starting to come out of that, fortunately, but we don't want to confuse a bad time to generate leads with a bad time to generate brand. This is the time, because you can always build brand, you can always become visible, you can always generate value for the person on the other end. And this is the window to be thinking about doing that. And then when people are ready to buy, then the leads will start to come in because of all this investment that you've made in building brand over this window. But nevertheless, we do acknowledge that what we're experiencing right now is very unique, and there's also going to be kind of a long-term effect to this that is going to require maybe a tweaking and modification to the strategy. But let's get back to kind of the crux and the meat of what we want to hit here, which is these three pillars that we believe every manufacturer needs to execute really well to be effective in a more virtual environment. So we have really sound digital strategy, really good technology tools, and virtual selling. The technology tools are what is going to be what enables virtual selling and digital marketing to happen. But nevertheless, we need to get all three of these right in order to be effective in this new environment. So Howard, which do we want to hit first?
Well, as you mentioned, foundational. Let's hit the foundation first, having the right technology and tools in place, if that's good. Okay. And we have some, if you want to share slide 2. All right, there we have it. So we have kind of segmented this list here of technology and tools into 2 buckets, a need to have bucket and a nice to have bucket. And in the need to have, meaning we really feel strongly that you should have these tools in place and you're using them effectively, and you've got your people trained on them to enable the highest ROI out of your digital strategy and your virtual selling, which we're going to talk about right after this. So that's the critical piece here. So I'll just go through a few of these. For example, the simplest one is on the need to have a CMS-based website. So a content management system website platform, like a WordPress, for example, is a platform many of you probably have, and one of our favorites. That is very easy to update. Lots of developers in the world know how to code in there. Many of the changes don't even require a developer. and Google loves them. They're very SEO friendly. However, the piece that, even if you have one of these today, we feel like you should be able to really showcase your products and your parts effectively online. And in many cases, you may want to add in an e-commerce component to that, like a WooCommerce, which goes with WordPress. So a CMS-based website with e-commerce scalability, even if you're not using it today, you want to set yourself up for success to enable the e-commerce component. And I don't mean all the way through a shopping cart where someone's paying you online. You don't have to have that necessarily. You may want that, but at least the ability to really showcase your products and services in a really nice format that these e-commerce components have. So that's really the first one. The next two kind of are joined at the hip, and that's a CRM, the customer relationship management system. We know a lot of manufacturers are on Salesforce. They use that to track their leads and maybe their customer information. HubSpot is another popular one out there as well. And there's several of them that go along with really having all the information in one place on all your prospects and customers, and all the activity that your sales folks are engaged with those people are in there too. So it's really strong platforms. A lot of them are reasonably priced now, shall we say. So that's kind of the next piece that really is used in the virtual selling heavily. Marketing automation, that is generally linked to a CRM. Many of the platforms have built-in marketing automation, like HubSpot has theirs built in to the CRM. Salesforce has Pardot partnered with them. There's also Marketo. MailChimp has marketing automation now. ActiveCampaign. So a lot of platforms, but really it enables you, it's email marketing on steroids. It enables you to do a lot more with your email, to automate various activities, set up workflows based on what people do with the email, whether they open it or not, whether they click on things or not. Really very, very robust capabilities there. And the rest of these are about really understanding what's happening on your website. So we know in our experience, a lot of manufacturers, their leads come from phone calls. People will call because they want to talk about the equipment. They're not exactly sure what part they need. Call check. So we're saying that you guys should have some call tracking software.
Don't worry.
See?
Yeah.
This is all your.
Mic is open.
Hey, Ian, can we mute our participant mics?
Thank you. I really don't want. I've got so many
I was
things.
just gonna.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Leave
gonna
it.
take a cup away.
Hello?
All right, I think you're good, Howard. You were talking about lead tracking.
Howard, you're going to need to, here, I'll unmute you. Okay, you should be good.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I was talking about tracking all the activity on your website, and this is specifically around leads. So a lot of phone leads come in through phone calls to manufacturers. We feel like you should have some call tracking software on your website so you can record all the information, who called, what number. The calls get recorded. You can listen to them. Great for improving your operations as well. Lead form tracking is just the ability to give folks a nice, easy way to fill out information on your website, whether they're looking for a quote, they want to sign up for your email, they want to download a PDF, sign up for a webinar. Real easy forms to use that house all the information afterwards, so you can utilize it to get back in touch with the folks. A lead sheet, which is basically a big spreadsheet that tracks all your leads, has where the website leads, whether the lead came from the phone call or the website. It lists the prospect name, their company, email, and then what they wanted to talk to you about, and what's the status of the lead. Did you quote it? Did you close it? And for how much? Because that one sheet is a snapshot of how well your online marketing is doing. And we're big believers in that. And Preston uses it for pretty much all his clients, I would say. It's very important there. And then website results tracking, that is more the traditional tracking your traffic and so forth. Google Analytics, Google Search Console, Google Tag Manager, those types of things, that's an automatic. You absolutely have to have that, those things set up on your website. They're free tools, so you know what's going on.
Yeah, and Howard, just let's just put a little clarification around a couple of these items, and then we do have to move on soon. But we work with manufacturers of a lot of different shapes and sizes, some of which sell just a few units a month, and then others that are working at a much larger scale than that. And so the tools that you use are going to be dependent on the lead volume that you're dealing with. And so, some of you on this call may be very sophisticated in how you do tracking and attribution on your marketing spend. We have other clients and prospects that we've talked to who are still on the sticky note system. And when they answer the phone, even if it's $1 million sale, they'll say, "Oh, you need to talk to Jim. Let me give you his number." And then they get a voicemail. And we know that because we listen to the call tracking. So the sophistication or lack thereof it's all over the place. And so if you're in a position where you can't, you're not tracking the leads that are coming in from your website and the outcome of those leads, then at a minimum, that needs to be put in some kind of digital document so that we can see, this came from an advertising and it closed or didn't close, and this is how much it was for. But then if you get more sophisticated with it, those CRM systems that you talked about can capture, did it come from a LinkedIn ad? Did it come from SEO? And then here was the outcome. And then you can build all kinds of fancy reports off of it. But it's still, even in 2020, surprises us how some are still really ramping up from ground zero on this thing. And so that's why we talk about certain tools that may seem very basic to some, but is still a big step forward for others. Howard, just finally on the nice to have, there's some other more sophisticated tools here that we could talk about. We can't go into too much depth just in the interest of time, but you have a visitor identification platform, which is basically a tool that will identify the company of the visitor on your website. And it maybe finds 30% of the people on your website, it finds the company that they're working for. So, tools like Lead Forensics can do this. HubSpot has this built in as well, although it's not quite as accurate. But if you have, if you prospect on a relatively small number of companies, and you want to know that somebody from Acme Incorporated is on your website because you've been trying to get into there, that's a nice little lead signal that you can then send to the sales team and they can respond to. A chatbot or a live chat, those are different things. Chatbot is the kind of AI automated version of live chat, but we've seen a lot of companies have a lot of success with that, both in terms of reducing the volume coming in and pre-qualifying people, but also just as a nice conversion tool to try and get more people to engage with the website. Accelerated cold calling platform, not just sitting there and manually dialing, but using a tool that can maybe dial 5 people at once and only plug you in if you've gotten to the right point of contact that you're trying to get to. Blasting out on email, that's kind of email marketing, but more sales related marketing. You can do that at scale. And then even a video creation software, I think, Preston, you mentioned a lot of companies are trying to get more into the video game to showcase their equipment. And maybe they don't have a videographer, or they can't afford one, or they don't want somebody to come in who's not authorized. You can shoot really high quality videos with even just an iPhone or an Android, and then use a tool like iMovie or whatever comes on with your computer to just cut down something very simple that will showcase the equipment. Will the quality be as high as if you hired a professional? Of course not, but look, I mean, a lot of people are making careers off of selfie videos on Instagram and TikTok. So it's not necessarily the quality, it's the substance of what you're putting out there. And so you shouldn't be afraid of trying to create this for yourself. All right, so that's on the technology side. Let's go over to digital strategies, some of the core pillars of a good digital strategy, and then we can hit the virtual selling side. So Preston, I want to bring it over to you. For those manufacturers who are maybe new to digital marketing, and they're trying to say, like, I know there's a ton of stuff I could do, LinkedIn, Facebook, content, SEO, blogging, websites, all this stuff. What do you tell a manufacturer who's maybe a little bit newer to digital strategy, what they should focus on as they develop their digital roadmap for 2020?
Absolutely. I would say that it really boils down to two primary items. Google advertising is pretty much Google advertising and content creation are the two things that if you aren't doing those things right now, you should be focusing on those things. With Google Ads are great because it allows you to capture intent. We can see that when somebody searches into Google, I'm looking for X product and they're looking for it right now. They can indicate to us, hey, I'm looking to make a purchase. You should be trying to capture those people, trying to get yourself in front of those people. In terms of content, one of the first exercises I do with every new manufacturing client who comes my way is sit down with them to identify what are all of the products and services that you do. And then let's link each of those things up with what's represented on the website. Inevitably, there's always something that just isn't represented on the website anywhere. An example of that is I have a client who they build signs, they manufacture signs, distribute different traffic equipment. He had one of the biggest signs that he sells are custom signs. If you were to go to his website, there's not a single representation that he sells custom signs anywhere. It's basically only people who have done business with him in the past that know that they can even get that from him. From there, kind of the next step with content is thinking about, what are the top 10 questions that the sales guys are getting? How much does this piece of equipment cost? What are the problems? Those are all great engagement tools and potentially lead generation traffic tools that you can start building out on your website. I guess from there, once you have digital advertising and content squared away, the next two things that we start talking about, thinking about is how else are we getting in front of our target audience? How are we staying in touch with our existing and past customers? And that's where we start bringing in things like email marketing. And a lot of times, and more recently in the last really year, really getting into LinkedIn advertising, which LinkedIn is fantastic because it allows you to target a very specific company and a very specific title. No other platform allows you to do that, where I can say, I want companies who fit this bill and these specific people at that company. So that's another great way that we are helping generate leads.
So let me summarize what I heard you say, Preston. Paid search advertising, so that's top of Google, the sponsored results in Google for all the products that you sell, right? Because you can get on the top of Google tomorrow, through that channel. On your website, making sure all products are represented on the website. It sounds like a no-brainer, but we come across it all the time where it's not everything's there. The top 10 questions that the sales folks are getting, document those and then generate content on those, right? So people may say, oh, like an FAQ page, but it's not quite that, right? Every question we want to write maybe 1,000-word response to, post it on the website. That way people who are on the website can find their way to it, and we know that they have that question probably ringing in the back of their head, but more likely than not that they do. But then also people are accustomed to typing these questions directly into Google or to Bing. And so if we've worded the title of the post as that question in Jeopardy format, then our post is more likely to show up top. And then the fourth thing that you said is LinkedIn advertising, which we cannot overstate the power of LinkedIn advertising right now. And Preston, you said this already, so I'll just repeat what you said. You can take a list of companies, upload it to LinkedIn, and then say, I want to target people at these companies with these job titles. And then you can push LinkedIn content directly to those individuals in the news feed, which is just insanely powerful in terms of precision. We've never seen anything like that before. Facebook cannot do that. Instagram cannot do that. And I will say, just even anecdotally, we've done that for some of our target industries and it's maybe 1,500 companies, and there's a marketing manager that we want to get in front of. We're running those ads, we're creating webinars, we're cutting the webinars into little videos, we're running them against that list of 1,500, and then we're coming back around with our cold calling against that list of 1,500 and the marketing managers there. And one of our salespeople, not on this webinar, but another one of our salespeople said, it's rare that I do an outbound call to somebody who has not heard of us. And because we're putting out such valuable content, and our content is around the questions our target market is asking all the time, we've already built trust with them ahead of that cold call. So not only have they heard of us, but they're a lot more receptive because we've given them something for free, probably multiple times ahead of that cold call. And so that's where these things start to work together. There's that technology component with the video and the content that we're creating, the digital strategy, and then the virtual selling that comes in next right alongside of it. So let's wrap up in the time that we have now by talking about virtual selling, the third pillar that you want to make sure you get right as you transition more to a digital and virtual selling and marketing approach. Howard, this is one that you spent a lot of time in yourself. What are some of the key things that a manufacturer should know as they transition to a virtual selling strategy?
Sure. Yes, I do spend quite a bit of time and may have spoken to some of the folks on the line today too, as well. So we have a slide, I think it's slide 6. If you want to pull that up, I'll start talking. Virtual selling is something we do all day long. There's no trade shows really for our industry, although we do go to the manufacturing trade shows on occasion as well. So, a lot of it is really around creating a discipline. What are you going to do every day to get in front of prospects, move prospects through the funnel? And, we know there's great sales folks in the manufacturing companies. They're used to this. Some of you probably sell through distributors. You rely on those folks to go get directly with customers. That's all fine and good. But if you want to control your destiny, these are some of the areas we feel like you should start implementing and investing in. And one is certainly the cold call. It's not dead. As a matter of fact, it's probably making a resurgence now because people can't see each other face to face. So having a very disciplined model on who you're going to call, and that really starts with the right lists, getting your prospect list in good shape, filling gaps whether you have vertical markets that you may have lists, but they're not complete. There's other prospects out there. Go get those lists. There's plenty of services out there that can help you with that. You can log into your local library and do a lot of research on your own, figure some things out, then contract with a company to pay. You can pay to get lists with email addresses and phone numbers. That's really important. Then if there's other vertical markets you're thinking about going into, start looking for the potential companies you want to talk to there. Do some sampling, pull a sample list. You can experiment, start calling them, off a script that's geared towards them, and see how it goes. Because there's some markets that, respond better to the cold call than others. So, we're big believers in that, really doing it every week, whether it's 500 calls a week, 1,000 calls, whatever the number is right for you and how many salespeople you have. So you're going to have kind of the pure cold call, people you've never spoken to before. And then you're going to have what we call follow-up lists. These are people you actually got a hold of, had a brief conversation. They probably weren't ready to meet with you yet. That's okay. You've logged that information in your CRM. That's why you have a CRM. And you put a follow-up date. And when that follow-up date happens, you get you'll get a trigger, depending on the system you have, said, hey, go call Mary Smith at XYZ company. Here's the notes from your last conversation. Here's what you should say in this conversation. And that's all information that you have pre-planned for. So cold calling is one. Obviously, we mentioned having a CRM. Whatever level of CRM you have, from the most basic to the most advanced, that's up to you. But you got to use it. We've seen so many cases where companies have CRMs, and we hear from the marketing and the salespeople, We don't really use that thing. Nobody ever learned how to use it. You're leaving money on the table if you're not using it. So, go ahead and use the one you got, or invest in another one or a new one if you don't have one. And then marketing automation is part of that, but that gets into having the right prospect list with the right email addresses and developing email sequences. And I won't go through all these, but one of the critical pieces in this day and age is the virtual meeting subscription. Obviously, Zoom stock price has gone up, way up. It may have come down a bit, but everyone's on Zoom. That's the popular one these days. GoToMeeting's been around a long time. WebEx has been around, which we're on today. They have free versions. That is a way to see your prospect without being at the trade show. Not that hard to use, very easy. You can experiment with your family, as many of us have. When you're doing these, setting up a virtual meeting with a prospect or client, turn your camera on. You want your camera on, you want their camera on, and so forth. And I'll just leave you with the last piece here. We talked about video. Vidyard is a great free tool. It's a Chrome plugin. You can record a video right from your laptop or your tablet or even your phone. And quick 30-second, 1 minute. Hey, Jim, looking forward to our meeting today. Here's what we're going to talk about. See you at 2 p.m. You click done. You click the link to share it. You embed that in your email to Jim. And it's a really nice way. Videos in emails get opened. If there's a video in the email and it's in the subject line, those emails get opened more frequently than ones without a video. So these are some of the things with virtual selling that we're doing for ourselves and also recommending to folks.
Excellent, Howard. Yeah. So you touched on some good things here. Some of the 100 level, you talked about the importance of cold calling cadence, and I was alluding to that with the digital marketing piece as well, which is we want to run these ads against these companies with great content that we've produced already, and then we want to time calls around those ads. But you also need to be very disciplined about who you're calling and when, and half the battle is just doing what you're supposed to be doing. Using the CRM, the CRM is only as good as the data that you put into it. And then virtual meetings, putting the cameras on. I don't know if you actually mentioned that. You haven't here though, but get someone to turn the camera on. We've now had every meeting that we've had internally, we have the camera on, and frankly, it feels weird not to have the camera on. It feels very evasive. So if you really want to start building that personal relationship, you have to be willing to do that. It may feel a little uncomfortable at first. Think about your environment. I started with not a great background, so I moved stuff around. I put our logo up. I've got lighting behind me that, I've got a DSL camera running my video feed. That's why the quality looks higher. Make those investments. For less than $1,000, you could get, one of your top salespeople to look really, really good in his home. Turn the camera on. It's going to add so much credibility. They have good headsets with good microphones that you can get for a couple $100. Make the investments. Make it polished. Vidyard free. Put videos in these emails. You got to start doing things that you're not used to doing to stand out, and it will definitely start to humanize the sales force a lot more. So we could talk about this for a really long time, but we're coming up on the 45 minutes. So Ian, I'd like to hand it over to you to see if there's any follow-up questions or any questions that maybe have come to your mind that we can expand upon.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually have a question. Howard and I talked about this a little bit. We're trying to, as an association, one of the big things that we do are events, and we have a trade show component to events. And part of our conversation with Howard is, during the COVID situation, during the crisis, how can companies navigate virtual trade shows? How can organizations take advantage of virtual trade shows? Have you guys seen anything? I know this is a very new concept. When we talked with Howard, it was a few weeks ago, so it was even more new. But have you guys seen any tools, or do you have any suggestions for folks who may have been going to a conference in November, and that conference is canceled now, and it's going to be virtual.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think this is something that a lot of people are still figuring out how's the right way and what's the right way to do this right now. And coincidentally, right before we came on this call, I saw that one of the largest marketing conferences in the country, HubSpot's Inbound conference in Boston, which is usually in September, has gone all virtual. That's a 40,000+ attendee conference that has gone totally virtual, and it's usually maybe a 4-day conference, and now they've truncated it down to 2 days. And so we're going to see a lot more of that. It's going to be shorter. You think about how much downtime there is at these conferences where you're not actually sitting there getting information. You're on the floor, you're walking around, you're networking, doing all that stuff. That becomes a lot harder to do in these kinds of environments. If I was tasked, though, with trying to figure that out, the very first place I would start is how can I create as much value as possible for the people that I'm trying to reach. As I said before, this is the time to keep the brand light burning. It's not a time to go quiet. And so we have to be prepared to make investments in things that may not pay off for us for quite a while. And that's the first shift, in the first paradigm shift that has to happen here. We can't expect direct response from these events the way that we normally would. We can't expect to come away from these events with leads in our hands. We've got to be ready to just give, and have faith that that's going to come back to us positively down the road. Now, if you're talking about something that's going to happen in November, maybe people are going to be more in a buying mindset by then. I would certainly hope so. But if this is something that's happening relatively soon, I would be totally focused on how can we provide as much value as possible in education, in driving awareness to other ways of doing things, and be just super empathetic to the fact that the person on the other end is probably fearful of their job, maybe even of their company's existence right now. And so everyone is kind of going through this existential crisis with their businesses. What can we do to try and help them? That's exactly what we're doing here. We're basically giving away our playbook on how we prospect in a B2B sense, hoping that if some of you adopt this, it's going to add value to you. And then maybe you think of us when you're ready to do something later. The other thing I would throw out there is you can't expect, for these to have kind of the same time investment that the more traditional offline venues would have. I mean, it's going to be cut down by half. You're not going to have the networking element. It's okay if it's going to be really short and sweet. That's fine. We're so limited right now in how we're delivering this information. So I think maybe throw away so much of what you know about how you used to do it and just focus on delivering as much value as possible using the tools that you have. And I think that's going to be going to put forth one of the best efforts that you could reasonably hope for right now. Howard, anything that you would add to that?
No, I think that's right. And actually, Preston has some examples of some of his clients that are attempting some things here as well, similar.
Yeah, that's great, Preston. We'd love to maybe share some of those with some of the members. That would be awesome. We've definitely, gotten some inquiries from folks who are trying to shift to the digital trade show platform. So, it'd be great. Do we have any more questions for the team? I know we're running a little over on time. Here, I'm going to, so everybody's unmuted. So if we have any questions, now is the time. Doesn't look like we do. Okay, well, thanks so much, guys. This is, like I said at the outset, this is really important conversation anyway, particularly in the digital era. But, during this crisis, being able to adopt a digital playbook is even more salient. So thanks so much. This is awesome for all the attendees. This and all of our webinars, for that fact, are recorded. We'll send this out to you guys, and they're accessible. One thing that I want to mention for folks who are not part of the association that kind of dovetails on this conversation, we're actually going to be building out. So we have a service contractor directory for manufacturers and industrial companies. We're going to be building that interactive platform to facilitate supply chain opportunities for folks. So you'll see Web Strategies in there as a digital marketing service provider. What we're also going to be doing, though, to kind of build upon that, we're going to have a closed off LinkedIn group for members only to facilitate supply chain opportunities between our associate members, which Web Strategies is, and our manufacturing companies as well. So we're going to be demoing that. We've been doing member-wide calls with companies every week in response to the virus, sharing best practices and resources. So we're going to be demoing that, not next Monday because that's Memorial Day, but June 1st on our member-wide call. So definitely tune into that. That we start those at 11:30. So June 1st at 11:30, and they run for about an hour. So thanks again for tuning in. The next webinar is going to be in June. We're going to have EI Group, their occupational safety and health company within the association, and they're going to be talking about their drive-through screening process and offering those services to companies. And they're also going to be talking about some of their testing. So, on that note, it looks like on that note, we'll end it there. Thanks again, guys. This was awesome. Really appreciate it. And we're going to make the slides available to folks as well. Is that?
Yeah, we can do that.
So we'll make the slides available to folks. We'll send these out to you guys. And thanks so much again. This was a great presentation.
All right, thanks everybody. Stay safe out there. Bye.
I don't know. I would just double and close the app maybe.